I'm a university student, and if there's one thing I hate more than being broke and having to live with some of the worst flatmates known to mankind, it's the fact that 90% of romance animes are set in high school. I just want something different. Workplace, university, medieval England, fucking, I don't know, a parking lot or something. And last time I went looking for these different romance anime, you guys loved it. And so Arakawa Under the Bridge. I honestly should have really picked a better anime to start with because, like what the hell am I watching right now? Straight away, we're introduced to Ko, who's swiftly renamed to Recruit after an unfortunate event, causing him to become indebted to Nino, a girl who lives under a bridge and is from Venus? Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. The anime is a funny development from a pretend relationship which leads to Reek, I don't even know what they call him, living with a very diverse group of people. And at times, this anime, it definitely felt like a fever dream. Like genuinely, I was at a loss for words so many times. I feel like when you set a romance anime outside of a school setting, you can just do so much more. Like, whatever the hell we have going on here. Half the time, the show feels like you just don't know what's coming next. But one thing I found is that this type of humor doesn't really last. It gets quite repetitive, and to make it worse, a lot of the romance is dumbed down or simply just used for comic relief. Like, I genuinely felt like I was getting blueballed for half the show because after 4 episodes, there would be a romantic undertone that would just be crushed for the sake of another joke. I genuinely think there was more romance between Reek and his secretary than there was between him and Nino. Besides the lack of character development, the show itself isn't bad by any means. The concept of having a whole village ecosystem under this bridge with no one ever realizing is pretty funny, and I found myself actually liking a lot of the characters. It was just unfortunate to see that these characters remain the same over the course of the whole show. It's overall just much more of a comedy anime than it is a romance or anything else, which is fine, but not for this video because this video is about romance anime. There were funny scenes, and then other times it just felt like the humor was a bit forced, but from a comedy standpoint, it's not bad, but it did also take me 3 weeks to get through the whole anime, and that was a time that I was planning to get through all 12 in. On another note, Sister was honestly the saving grace of the show. Tonikawa. Tonikaku, over the moon for you, fly me to the moon. Apparently this anime is known under 50 different names, and each one of them was commented several times under my last video, so it's safe to say that this was very much highly requested. The anime follows Nasa, who was named after NASA, and what surprised me is that it had nothing to do with the truck that hit him in the first episode. As Nasa's adrenaline wears off, he becomes fearful of losing the woman of his dreams, just as she leaves him to bleed out. With the sheer willpower of love alone, he gets up and fucking confesses? He's the GOAT! Look, when I tell you that beyond this first episode, this is a pretty normal slice of life, you probably would think that I'm out of my mind, but following a short cheeky coma, Nasa wakes up and decides to start a side hustle, amassing like $5. I have no clue what the exchange rates are. And just as he yearns to see the woman of his dreams one more time, she just pulls up at his door with marriage documents. Like, this man's steak is dripping with juice and his lobster is oiled up in butter, bro. Save some for the rest of us, goddamn! A lot of the time, I usually fall out of love with slice of life anime because they just get repetitive or boring. But this anime, it genuinely beat all odds. Also because I vastly prefer slice of life when it's set outside of high school and doesn't follow the same tropes and overall keeps me entertained for longer when I'm not watching the same clock-based show with different characters. The name of the anime, Tonikaku Kawaii, literally translates to cute no matter what, or at least that's what Google told me. And that's exactly what this anime is. The anime is very cute, and we even wait until marriage to hold hands, and Nasa has got fucking balls. My god. I unironically found myself smiling so much throughout the anime, but I gotta give it to Nasa. This guy is a closeted freak. Like, dude, I'm gonna have the same level of romantic tension with a shotgun if we keep this up. Tonikawa is kind of like My Happy Marriage if it was actually happy. Set in modern Japan, had 2 completely different characters, and was essentially a completely different show. So I don't even know why I compared the 2 in the first place. It was probably because they both involved marriages. Dude, Nasa was actually so into it sometimes that I genuinely felt like I was third wheeling watching the anime. Like, god damn. You want me to like look away or something? Like, calm down. Like, when I say I like to watch slop, I mean shitty isekai, not 60 frames a second of full high definition making out. All jokes aside, Tonikawa is a really wholesome show with a small drop of freak here and there, but it's not fan service, it's more like NASA service, because this guy is genuinely living the life of his dreams. Regardless, I really enjoyed the show as the 2 of them do everything that a married couple would, like get a cat, make out again. Dude, I'm actually just gonna make out the shotgun. Love After World Domination. This was pretty good. Love After World Domination is about a forbidden love between the leader of the Power Rangers and a high-ranking general in the villain group. Stay with me here. When you shift the setting from a high school to elsewhere, you oftentimes shift the focus of the anime from how they confess to how they work around their circumstances to maintain their relationship. And here we're placed into this Romeo-Juliet-esque scenario, except it's set in My Hero Academia crossed with Power Rangers instead of 15th century Italy, and this guy is about to drink 10 raw eggs, what the hell. The anime was overall very fun to watch, and I found it really easy to binge, but it does suffer from a repeated focus on new characters that kind of get in the way of the main relationship, rather than the actual relationship being developed, which leads to the romance feeling quite shallow, but it was still very much enjoyable. It was one of those shows where you can just switch off your head and just enjoy when you need to kill some time. I also ended up liking a lot of the characters, with the exception of the very much questionable school nurse. There's also this fat-ass cat, and cats are basically a staple in the out-of-school romance genre. Overall, it's a very fun blend of comedy and romance, and I would highly recommend it if you want something lighthearted and not too deep. 365 Days to the Wedding. If the last one was a bit too absurd for you, don't fret, this one's a bit more vanilla. A slightly socially awkward guy catches one of his co-workers constantly glaring at him when, in reality, she's also a bit awkward and doesn't even realize that she's glaring at him. I mean, we've all been there, especially me because I'm blind as hell, so I have to be within 2 meters of someone for me to even recognize them. And obviously we also have a cat, as is mandatory. If anything, the MC kind of reminded me of myself from a couple years back, before I had any facial hair and before I learned how to talk to people. Someone who is too scared to act, yet is regretful of not doing so. Now, you might be wondering how these two socially awkward people that otherwise wouldn't even utter a word to each other got married. Well, to put it simply, it's to avoid a business trip to Alaska. Because the best way to get out of a business trip is to get married, clearly.
ではなくて、私と結婚しませんか?
Yep, and I'm still waiting for this to happen to me. When I said earlier that these two doofuses are getting married, I forgot to say that it's actually a pretend marriage. The Alaskan branch of the company opens in exactly 365 days, and hence, they decide to live under the lie of there being 365 days to their wedding. I think the two main characters both have very real traits that are obviously overtuned for the sake of the show, but it still leads to sometimes enjoyable and other times painful to watch scenarios. I'm sure that when you were younger, you were probably told that lying is bad and you're bound to be found out because it's hard to keep up a lie for long, and we soon learned that lying about marriage is very much difficult. Problems like co-workers, family, and a very much territorial cat, and more, all get in the way of this fake marriage, and yet both these dumbasses still don't realize the fact that they are actually in love with each other. When I sat down to binge this anime, I honestly wasn't expecting to watch melons be harvested and a 40-year-old man intellectually regressing into a gorilla at the side of divorce papers, all whilst his entire work colleague Rosta and 7-year-old son run around Tokyo looking for him. Wow. The characters themselves are also later into their 20s, so some encounter problems that are very different to something you'd expect from a normal romance anime, like finding out your love interest as a single mother, or trying to understand what marriage actually means for a relationship, and that even as an adult, you might not be ready for the responsibility of one. All in all, the anime was pretty chill, and honestly, it felt really short in comparison to the others, but the ending was really cute, and I did end up enjoying this anime a decent bit. Although maybe it really should have been called 71 out of the 365 days to the wedding, because we don't even see the latter 294 days. Nodame Cantabile. This anime is one of those where you look at the bland cover art and the somewhat cryptic name and think, it's probably gonna be boring. And before you can even finish that sentence, you're already enjoying the first episode. I mean, at first I couldn't even pinpoint what it was about it that entertained me, but it felt like the whole vibe was just exactly what I wanted. It's lighthearted, but not exactly generic. The characters feel like real adults that I would run into in my own life, and the humor was on point in a way where it adds to the show's entertainment without it being too over the top or forced. Like, I don't even care that much for music, let alone classical music, and yet I found myself infatuated whilst watching the show. And there's also no blonde violinist to die on me. I mean, right off the bat, I've never seen someone play an electric violin, but I guess anything goes in music school, just like any smell goes in a computer science lecture. The base premise is that Chiaki is a 4th-year piano graduate, but he struggles with one massive roadblock, with it being that he can't get on a plane. This means that he has a lot less potential in his music career without being able to leave Japan, despite him almost being a prodigy in both piano, violin, and even orchestrating, which is what he chooses to pursue. Megumi Noda, or Nodame, is Chiaki's neighbor and also a fellow piano graduate who, let's just say, is a bit problematic, and yet she still yearns for Chiaki's love to the point where she even refers to herself as his wife, quite often. I actually had to Google what cantabile meant, and I found that it's an Italian term for sounds like music, which, in the name of the anime, reflects Nodame's unique style of playing the piano, where instead of reading from a score, she prefers to listen to the music and understand its feeling and mood. Nodame herself is probably what we would call a chidette in modern terms, whilst Chiaki is more of a closeted tsundere. I honestly adore the dynamic between Chiaki and Nodame, and you could argue that the romance is an extreme slow burn, but I feel like it's written in a way that makes it better, because the characters feel more real. They focus on themselves, their careers, and their goals, but the romance is still an underlying factor that sways how the characters think and what the characters choose to do, especially in Nodame's case. I think a lot of romance anime focuses on the romance too explicitly, as if there's nothing else going on in the characters' lives, and other times the anime fails to blend romance with something else, and hence has to sacrifice meaningful romantic progression. But with Nodame Cantabile, the romance coincides with the main plot without it needing to be explicit. And due to this, the characters overall feel more like real people. Like, we've got someone who never cleans their room, someone who gets irritated at every minor detail, someone who's an absolute slag, or someone who's just straight up homoerotic. The way they're written also reflects the amount of time that Chiaki spends with these characters. Someone like Nodame, who he cares for, he knows a lot more about, while someone like Mine, who is an acquaintance of sorts, he knows less about, and was surprised to find out that he's dating someone. The anime also doesn't blow stuff out of proportion. I mean, yeah, it came as a shock to Chiaki that Mine was dating someone, but at the end of the day, there's no reason for him to care all that much, so he brushed past it quite quickly. But what we can't brush past is the yaoi subplot. There's this little thing I love in the anime where the ending song starts slightly before the actual ending, and so the final scene of the episode kind of flows into the ending. And this anime just loves to do this, which is a little bit of attention to detail that just adds that little extra bit of personalization to the anime. Overall, it's an interesting story about what it means to have talent, and how even those with said talent need to put in work for it to bloom and come to fruition, and how sometimes meeting someone special is what you need to be able to understand your potential. I mean, orchestrating in itself requires a lot more than just waving a stick around, and personally, I'm no musician, but as with any form of creation, I feel like playing an instrument is a way of expressing yourself, hence why something like heartbreak can affect even the littlest of sounds. And so Chiaki has to learn how to understand people and how they play, how their feelings or mishaps affect their instrument sound, and has to work around it to achieve a performance that not only he is proud of, but one that a whole audience will be able to enjoy. Unfortunately, I only watched the first season for the sake of the video, because getting through 12 anime takes quite a while as it is, but I'll definitely finish this anime soon, because to say I really enjoyed it would honestly be an understatement. It made me feel this feeling that I haven't felt from an anime in quite a while, being able to just fully absorb myself in something and enjoy everything it has to offer. And although I wouldn't call it explicitly romance, the ending of the first season was very sweet, and it ends with a very powerful quote too. Sometimes memories can constrict your heart, but then the heart has a new encounter that sets it free. The Garden of Words. I'll start off by saying that I sat through the whole movie concerned because of the fact that this guy is a 15-year-old high schooler and she is clearly an adult who we later find out is a 27-year-old teacher, and this is supposedly a romance anime. You could probably tell where my concern lays, but honestly I would argue that in this movie it isn't that problematic. And before you drop allegations on me, the romance isn't really a romance of sorts. The two characters never do anything romantic, nor is there any romantic relationship between them. This relation between them is explained near the end of the movie, and I would get into it, but it is also quite hard to explain this without spoiling anything, because a 45-minute movie is very much short. The two meet on a rainy morning in the Garden of Words, simply because that's a place they found themselves in when skipping school or work due to feelings of alienation and loneliness in their day-to-day lives. The two keep each other company and in a way help each other realize that they aren't as alone as they think in this world, and there are people out there just like them, as well as those who believe in them and those that won't dislike them for who they are. The movie has absolutely stunning visuals, as you would expect from a Makoto Shinkai film, and the piano soundtrack at the start gave me whiplash because it sounded a few chords too similar to the Your Lie in April soundtrack. The ending was wholesome with, I'm pretty sure, no child protection laws being broken, because the adult somewhat knows their boundaries to an ethically acceptable extent, and all in all it was a good movie. It's just really hard for me to talk much about it without basically summarizing the whole thing because of how short it is. But given the reputation of most anime, I'd say that this film handled the scenario pretty well. Bunny Girl Senpai. By far the most commented anime on my last video was Bunny Girl Senpai, so much that it even caused two whole debates. Yeah, half the people that commented this anime were just hyper-devoted fans that ignored the whole gimmick of the video after seeing the word romance. However, the other half commented it because season 2 is set in university, and more so because the show itself doesn't really focus on high school that much, especially past the first season. And so, Bunny Girl Senpai now gets its own half honorary, half deserved spot on this list, because I honestly needed another reason to put mine on the thumbnail, because the anime is actually pretty good. I'm gonna completely brush over the first season because I didn't bother rewatching it, because honestly, I have 2 more playthroughs of SMTV to do to 100% the game, game, and I also have 5 more anime to watch after this. The main premise is that Sakata helps people with their puberty syndrome, which is essentially just major inconveniences that happen due to the instability experienced due to puberty, causing things such as not being perceived by anyone, collective dreams of the future, or having massive claw marks on your chest. It's kind of like if you took Clannad and Monogatari and fused them together. Wow, okay, this movie was a rollercoaster of emotions. I'll say it now, this is probably the peak of the whole show. Like, I was at tears multiple times. With this movie, you think nothing more could possibly happen, and then you get piled with 3 more crucial events that alter the whole story all within 5 minutes. Amazing movie, would watch again. This one was okay, although I didn't like it anywhere near as much as the first. It follows Kaide's subplot, which honestly I didn't even remember much about from the first season because it's been a while since I watched it. Maybe I really should have rewatched the first season. So I did some research before watching the movie, but I honestly still just didn't really care all that much. It was alright. This one was great. When confronted with the choice between living in the flawed, real world regarded as the painful truth riddled with hardship, or living in an idealistic reality like a sugar-coated lie, you really have to weigh your own values before making a choice. And this is the choice that Sakata has to ultimately make in this movie, which is a topic that I personally love, mainly due to Persona 5's third semester. Although it wasn't as good as the first movie, this one still intrigued me very much. The second season is set in university, and when I first saw this, it was genuinely all over the screen, because I just knew I could talk about this anime in this video. This meant that it was a perfect, ideal contender for the list. Overall, this season was decent, and I love Akagi's part the most, especially when Sakata told her that sometimes you just gotta keep living your life, because that's all you can do. And overall, it was pretty enjoyable. I definitely think that the first movie was the peak of the show, but it was still a very much entertaining watch all the way through, and I will be watching the final movie when it airs in October. The Ancient Magus Bride. A 15-year-old girl sells herself off at an auction in order to find a place where she's really and truly wanted as opposed to her current life. She gets bought for £5 million by the Ancient Magus, who proclaims that he will make her his bride. Now, I know that the age of consent was 14 in Japan at the time, but they live in London, and either way, it's still a bit questionable for there to be something between a century-old non-human mage and a literal child. Despite this, I found the Magus to be a somewhat interesting character who's trying to understand humans and their emotions, as he isn't one himself. But still, this anime just didn't interest me too much, and I didn't really care for the characters in the grand scheme of things, but it might be enjoyable for those who are more into the fantasy genre. All in all, it just felt like nothing special to me, although I did enjoy recognizing the fairies' names based on the fact that most of them are demons in SMT or personas in Persona. All in all, this anime just really wasn't for me. I didn't like the overall premise, the characters didn't appeal to me all that much, and it was honestly a drag to get through, to the point that I don't even have much to say because I was literally turning off my brain whilst watching just so time went by faster. Like, some parts were cool, like the cat subplot in the prior half of the first season, but I don't know, I just didn't enjoy this one. Maybe others will enjoy it more. Nina the Starry Bride. Right off the bat, the premise of this anime is very similar to something like Snow White with the red hair, but it branches off into its own unique direction later on. Nina is someone who lives in poverty to the point where she wasn't even able to afford medicine for a dying friend, and one day, her other friend, instead of choosing to continue starving, chooses to sell Nina off, marketing her unique starry blue eyes. We later find out that she wasn't just sold off, but she was actually picked out to be a replacement for the princess of the nation, who also had pink hair and the same starry blue eyes, and was soon to be married off to a neighboring nation for peacekeeping reasons. This anime is a perfect instance of what is a pretty good anime with 12 episodes and no second season in sight, because this shit ended really abruptly and it honestly felt like someone slapped down a free dinner in front of me, let me take a couple of bites of the steak, and then took it all away from me and told me to leave the restaurant, and now all I can do is tell others about my experience there. The anime tries to delve into the concept of how having a massive switch up in your life, like going from immense poverty to replacing a monarchical figure, would affect you, with Nina fearing of losing her true identity. With this, she has to resort to using the only person who knows who she really is as a way of grounding herself. What if we combined doomed yaoi and toxic yuri and got some freak child where a relationship between a man and a woman doesn't work out? That's where this whitehead prince comes in. This anime is the opposite of most romance animes where, because it's a josei, it's written in a way where there's only one female protagonist and several male love interests, as opposed to the usual opposite. Did I like this? I don't know, but I enjoyed the anime itself quite a bit. And the romance cat theory still holds up, to an extent. I have a crush at work, can you keep a secret? Workplace romance is probably the default when thinking about romance anime that aren't set in the school, and I have a crush at work, can you keep a secret in itself is pretty self-explanatory. These two have a crush on each other at work, and they're keeping it a secret. Who would have guessed? But wait, hold on, there's actually a bit more to it. There's two couples. That's right, there's two. As a whole, this anime is really wholesome, and is basically just wotakoi if the main cast were more like the average Japanese office worker rather than absolute weebs. The anime starts off with a confession, meaning the whole show explores the dynamic present in a workplace relationship that is being willingly kept secret, but also doesn't shy away from showing the importance of balancing your love life with your work life and your own goals and ambitions, regardless of whether the relationship is in secret or not. The main pair are very likable, and I was hovering the trigger several times whilst watching, but as a whole, it was a very enjoyable watch, with my only criticism being that it's only 12 episodes long. I'd argue that this is probably the most basic an office romance anime can get, but in a way that doesn't make it lose any value. So if you enjoyed anime like Wotakoi, The Ice Kind of School Female Colleague, or 365 Days to the Wedding, this one is another one that I'd highly recommend for you to watch. Recovery of an MMO Junkie. Recovery of an MMO Junkie follows Morioka Moriko, who quit her job to be a full-time bum and play games the whole day, pretending to be a man online. And you know how some guys only use female Fortnite skins? Yeah, Moriko meets a girl who she finds very cute, but fails to realize that she isn't the only one catfishing around here, and that the two of them are actually both pretending to be the opposite gender to the one they're online. Thanks to a whole lot of coincidences, the two of them not only meet in person, but also discover each other's true identities, alongside some other random shit happening, like the local convenience store worker being their guild leader, or Sakura wearing this outfit that would make any twink lover drool. Not that I would know that myself. What Bruce sends you after failing a job interview. The anime is quite lighthearted, but the thing that bugged me is that no one could ever get their words out. Like bro, every single time something was gonna happen between them, a convenient interruption would just take place and then be like, oh, never mind. Just off the top of my head, I can remember 4 separate instances of this in just the last 2 episodes. Like, I did enjoy the show, but I just wish there was more to it. It's a fun story about 2 people who are destined to be together, finding each other after several online encounters, yet the romance never really fully progresses and is left incomplete. But a quick Google search told me that this was due to the author's severe health issues, and that meant that the manga had to be quickly ended, which all in all is a shame, but it makes sense. Overall, it was a good watch, and it was pretty easy to binge as well. Yakuza Fiancé.
だから売ってきたったわ体腎臓片方400万
Okay, I really wasn't expecting this. What? If you're familiar with the average Yakuza 0 subplot, then the best way I could describe this anime to you is if one of those got animated. The base premise is that Yoshino gets sent to potentially get married to Kirishima to further tighten the bond between 2 Yakuza families, but she soon finds out that Kirishima is definitely not the type of man that she wants to be with. And so, instead of just going back home like any normal person would, she decides to stay for a whole year, make Kirishima fall in love with her, and then leave just to rub salt on the wound. And there's also the expected amount of Yakuza infighting and random side quests. What the hell did I just witness? Is it like a Yakuza thing to be like this freaky, or is it just a coincidence that every single piece of Yakuza media is just insanely freaky? The anime overall was very entertaining. I really enjoyed it because in itself it's quite different. It's more about the Yakuza lifestyle, and there's loads of action, there's loads of fighting, and the romance in itself is already a unique twist. It's more of a war between the two. I have no clue what happened in the last 7 minutes or so of the last episode, but I felt that I overall did enjoy this anime to probably a higher degree than many others in this video, just because of how different it was. It wasn't the same basic formula, it was its own thing that stood out to me. I also kind of like the manhwa-esque art style. It's also a nice refresher. Now that we're nearing the end of the video, I'm going to introduce a new section because apparently a 22-minute video wasn't long enough for me already. I'm going to very briefly go over all the anime and put them in a tier list to compare them to each other. Arakawa Under the Bridge, it had close to zero romance, the humor got too repetitive too fast, D tier. Tonikawa, cute and wholesome romance, nothing else to really say, A tier. Love After World Domination. It was alright, the premise is interesting, but it just wasn't the best, honestly, C tier. 365 Days to the Wedding. It was kind of basic, and I honestly have forgotten most of it by this point, C tier. Nodame Cantabile, my personal favorite from these, great characters, fun anime, overall, S tier. Garden of Words, pretty good movie, not too big on the romance, but the visuals were really nice, B tier. Bunny Girl Senpai, undisputed GOAT, need I say more, S tier. Ancient Magus Bride, it didn't really intrigue me, but I'd say it's objectively a pretty good anime, B tier. Neither the Starry Bride, I enjoyed it, but overall it just felt too short and the ending didn't really end much and it was a bit of a mess, C tier. I Have a Crush at Work, it's basic, but it works well, the romance is good and it was very much enjoyable, A tier. Recovery of an MMO Junkie is good, it's easy to binge, it wasn't as forgettable, but there's definitely better stuff out there. B tier. Yakuza Fiancé, very fun to watch, unique twist on romance, and I love the action. A tier. Okay, there you go. Now you can watch the whole video in about a minute and a half and not have to watch the actual video. Cool. Awesome. Also, the fact that someone could have been conceived and born in the time that it took me to make another romance video is very much concerning, but I assure you the wait is only going to get longer from here because I have Yakuza 0 to 100% and that's going to take quite a bit of time. But if you do have any recommendations for the next video, feel free to leave them down below. And with that, have a great rest of your day.